Yo, hey, it's Christine Javier, and today I am going to work on Free Code Camp's Confirm the Ending algorithm. So, in this challenge, you're given a string, and you're seeing if the second argument, the target string, matches the ending of the first argument. All right, so you could run through the test cases and kind of gauge what's happening, but I'll go over that in a second. All right, so I'm just going to copy this function and I'll work in my text editor. All right, so and I already added the test cases here, so we could just quickly go through those and see what the outcome is. But let's quickly analyze what's happening. So in this case, the very first test, you have the word bastion, and you have the target of n. So given those arguments, it should return true. And the reason is because n here matches the very last letter of bastion. And let's go to a more complicated one. Name argument here matches with name at the end of he has to give me a new name. And a little more complicated than that, ME matches the very last letters of this argument here of name, and that returns true. So, I mean, the idea is target should match just the very last letters of the string argument. And I'm going to go over how to conceptualize that for coding. So let me go over here on my sketchpad. All right, so we have this input string of the first argument, str. He has to give me a new name. And if you were to check what the length of that is, the length of that would be 28. And one of the arguments that we saw was the target argument of me, where the length of that is 2. So with this first argument and the second argument, this would return true in the function. And that makes sense because, let's see, undo, oops, redo. Because here, the very last position is at position 27. And the M there is at position 26. So the goal is you're trying to isolate those two elements at position 26 and 27. And the mathematical way to consider that isolation is to think that you get the length of the first argument, which is the input string, and you get the length of the target argument, which is which is 2, and you subtract that, and you'll end up isolating the very first letter of the input string argument. And if you isolate from there to the very end of the string, and if that entire thing matches the target, then you should return true. Otherwise, we'll return false. So we'll consider the length of the first argument, subtract the length of the target arguments, and isolate from that element position to the end, and ask ourselves, is that equal to that? All right, so let's code that out. All right, so let's see. All right, so I'm going to declare a variable called checkpoint, which equals str.length minus target.length. And I'll just reiterate again, because if you get the length of the first input, the str length, subtract the length of the target input, you'll get that position that you're checking for. And then from there, we're going to use a method called substring. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's substr. And this method here checks the position that you input that value up until a certain amount of characters. So, like, for example, let's say you have the word dog. Let's see. Then if you do, if you wanted to log out the the position at the character at position 1 up until just that point, just that one character. We could check that out. So I'm just gonna run that really quick and see what happens. So yeah, ignore the bastion here, but the O here represents in dog what exists at position 1, 0, 1. We have O. And the 1 here represents how many characters we're trying to look for. So we're only going to look for that one character. And that's why O is returned, or console.logged, I should say. Now let's try putting 2 in. You should get OG. There you go. So that's what the method does. It just kind of allows you to pinpoint exactly the range of elements you want to detect in a string. And we're going to use that method today. So let's see. I'm going to get str. Let's see. How to best go about this. Str. We're just going to check what the str.substring is of checkpoint. And I don't want to include a range of amount of characters because I want to go from the checkpoint point and go all the way through the end of the string. So if you don't put the second argument here, it's just going to target all the characters up until the end of the string, from the checkpoint to the end of the string. So let's just see how that looks like. Cool. So we end up getting n in the argument bastion, which is like exactly what we want to isolate. Now, let's just write a quick if statement. If hold on, sorry. If str at or dot substring of the checkpoint equals target, return true, else return false. Cool, so it returns true, and that's exactly what we wanted. So again, to reiterate, we managed to pinpoint exactly the kind of the relationship between the target and the input string, and we're just seeing where this would match in the input string positionally. So we figured out mathematically that if we get the length of the input string and find the relationship with the length of the target string, subtract those two lengths, will determine the position at which the target would start, which is key to this problem. And from there, we use something called the substring method. Input the checkpoint number we found, and don't set a second argument because we want to go from that point up until the end of the string because we want to like isolate that whole ending. And we're just checking to see if it equals target. So all of these should be correct. Let's just check the interesting sort of arguments here. So this should return false because specification is not at the end. Frozen is at the end. Good, it returns false. Then let's see. This should return true. Good. This should return true. Good. So let me just go ahead and test it in FreeCodeCamp and see if it works. Cool. Onward ho. Who makes those titles? I want to have their job. So that works, but let's clean this up a little bit because we don't need these if-else statements. We could do this in one line and make this a two-line solution. There's something called Boolean, and you could test the Boolean for the Boolean value of something. So I'm going to test the Boolean value of str checkpoint equaling target, and I'm just going to return that. Let's see. So let's see if it works for our first argument again. Yep, it returns true. And just to reiterate, I just want to read this out to you. So whatever is inside here is a condition, and this Boolean here will return the Boolean value of that condition. So if this is true, it's going to return true. Otherwise, it'll return false. So let's just go through our conditions again, or our tests, I should say. All right, and this interesting one here, that should return true. Why does that return false? str at checkpoint equaling target. Should return true. Var checkpoint equals str.length minus target.length. Okay, that's right. Return boolean of str at the checkpoint. Ah, my bad. Wrong syntax. We're using substring like I mentioned to you. There we go. Okay. Please excuse me for that. So yeah, so the substring method is definitely really important for this one here. But yeah, our test should run smoothly. Let me just replace this here. All right. And there you go. It still works, but we've managed to write this out in just 2 lines, which is awesome. All right, so hopefully that's helped you out. Hopefully you're more interested in the substring method and you have learned how to figure out relationships between the different arguments here. All right, have a good day.